Welcome back to another episode of Hail Yes, a Michigan football and basketball podcast by the Detroit Free Press. I am Andrew Burkle, and of course joined by our Michigan beat writer, Tony Garcia, who's on the mend. We had to miss last week's episode. Just a quick housekeeping note, because Tony was feeling like crap and was barely getting to the game. So we didn't want to put anything extra on his plate. So Tony, how you feeling, man?
A little better. I don't know if Darren Peterson, the star Kansas player who is expected to go number 1 overall, I don't know if his sickness is real or not, but I kind of feel like how I'd imagine he felt, or like just like game time decision, like, I don't know, like I could do this, I could not. I mean, I would suit up against number 1 Kansas. We still made the trip to Columbus, and there was a midweek game. It's all blurring together now.
Penn
what
State?
was before Ohio State? Yeah, Penn State. Okay, that's when I was really down bad. And so, I mean, they just housed them by like 40. So that definitely helped. But no time for sickness or for self-care. This is about what could be very soon the number 1 team in the nation, rocking, rolling, on the ascent, which is really remarkable to think about given how well they've played outside of 1 week, like 2 games, that Penn State road game, that home Wisconsin loss. Outside of that, for the entire season, it's just a remarkable year that Michigan's undergoing. Head out. I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday, just before noon, the 10th. We got going to Chicago, Evanston, I guess, tomorrow for Northwestern. Then a couple more road trips. I mean, next week is when things really pick up. This week is sort of a typical Big Ten week with Northwestern and UCLA, but after that, the next 3 are big time matchups. So excited for it.
I love how you say typical Big Ten week, and then you say UCLA as if that's like super normal still. But I guess that's still an adjustment for me. But you're like you said, it's pretty normal at home, at least in Chicago.
I just meant like solid teams, like teams that you gotta like be aware of, but not. I mean, Duke is it's weird to play a non-conference matchup this late in the year. That's a top 5 game. At Illinois is going to be a top 10 game. At Purdue will be a fringe top 10 game. Like those are like 3 juggernaut games. I just mean like UCLA, like I don't know if UCLA is even in the tournament picture right now. You know what I mean? And so just kind of decent teams, but not any, like you can't totally write it off. Maybe Northwestern you can write off or write up as a win already. Michigan won't, but I think you can. And then UCLA is a sneaky home spot, but I think they'll be fine there as well. I guess UCLA they got as a 10 seed on bracket matrix right now.
Okay,
they're fringe. I mean, they're in there, but Big Ten teams can't drop much below an 11. You know what I mean? So that's one of the last 5-6 teams in right now.
Yeah, they're 40th in KenPom, 17-7 this year. Michigan will be double-digit favorite at home because that's what they do. They crush teams. So storylines of the week since we last talked. Michigan, it seems like they've just hit the accelerator, or like what are those the NAS, or what are those things
NAS.
On cars from the NAS?
Yeah,
They hit
nitrous.
Nitrous. Yeah. And just like completely took off after the MSU win. You know, you win by 12 on the road against a rival, and then you just absolutely shellac Penn State. Ohio State, you win by 21 on the road. I mean, it's also a beatdown, but I mean, the Penn State game at home was utterly uncompetitive. Like it was like a MAC team. I mean, that's how ugly it got and quick. And Penn State was just completely, humbled isn't the wrong word, but like they just looked like, oh, yep. They were reserved to their fate very quickly. And then you go on the road and you play Ohio State, Michigan rivals. In basketball, it's not the same thing, but you still just absolutely take it to them. So my takeaway was, that it seems like after that down week and this Michigan State win really took them to the next level and took them to the next stratosphere back to where they were in November, because suddenly it looks like that same team again.
Yeah, no, that feels fair. I would say, even the game before, I think, Michigan State is what cemented it, but the game before against Nebraska, finding a way, even when, I think Michigan State really, I agree with you, because that solidified it, because Nebraska was pretty banged up. They didn't have Rink Mass, they didn't have Braden Frager, and Michigan trailed for 36 minutes of that game, but they found a way.
They didn't play their best. Yeah.
No, they certainly weren't playing their best, but I'd say the best game they played in the month of January was against Michigan State. And then Penn State was irrelevant. Like I was actually more impressed, of course, by MSU, but just speaking of this last week, that Ohio State win was one of the most impressive wins this year. And I mean, that might sound weird because they're Ohio State right now on ESPN bracketology is the first team out of the tournament. So, I mean, this is a bubble team really at best. There was never a second that Michigan was not going to win that game. And like Ohio State for 10 minutes or so, they kept it a little frisky and they got within 2 a couple times. I thought the game was going to be a little closer than it was. I mean, this game was tied they played 17 days prior. Ohio State had Michigan tied 50-50 with like 8 minutes to go at Chrysler. And then this is how many times have we seen this type of game in the Big Ten, right? Like a juggernaut team coming in against a team that's certainly not as good at it but needs a signature win, has the rivalry juice. And I just want to say this about Schottenstein Center and in Columbus. That was embarrassing. The crowd performance that I saw. I mean, frankly, Ohio State fans should be humiliated by what occurred on that day. I mean, I know Michigan fans have and the crowd has gotten a lot of flack and oftentimes deservedly so. I still go back to last year against Maryland in the final week of February. That game was to keep the Big Ten title hopes alive. And the place was just, the phrase that's been used pejoratively is like calling it, like the library, right? Like it's just not loud. It's not rock. I've never heard Ohio State. We were looking it up pregame. Schottenstein Center is the biggest venue in the Big Ten, and it was darn near sold out. I mean, there's like 18,000 people there. The loudest it got at any point in the whole game was when a smattering of Michigan fans, they had some a decent turnout, nothing like what I'm expecting tomorrow or Wednesday evening in Evanston. But was when the "Let's Go Blue" chants broke out. I mean, Ohio State fan they didn't get excited for the giveaways. They didn't. Brickin' for chicken. The one thing that you can count on mouth-breathing fans of any school to get excited about, even when you're losing, is we'll give you some free chicken if you get a little bit loud and force them to miss. They even counted it on and ones. Normally, a lot of schools will make you they have to miss both free throws. If they had missed and one free throw, yeah, and there's no sound. I'm looking around is anybody awake here? I remember you you and I text obviously offline off this all the time. And I think it was your brother who wanted to know about the rankings of the Big Ten stadiums, because I've been fortunate enough to go to a lot of them. This one, I'm dropping Ohio State. I think I put them in the middle of the pack. This was pathetic. This was terrible. So I just, but Michigan gets credit for that, from just sucking the soul out of them immediately. I'm after the post game, after the game, I'm walking to post game media, and I just overhear conversations all the time between event staff. A lot of them were they're like, that wasn't even close. There was nothing we could do. They're so big, they're so strong, they're so physical. Talking about Michigan, obviously, and we've known this to be the case. They are, and they just, Morez Johnson, Adimar, and Yaxel Lendeborg had 32 rebounds. Ohio State had 31, and then when you combine a dominant performance down low like that with a 9 of 18 3-point shooting performance in the first half, Ohio State was fortunate that Michigan actually missed more layups than they ever have at any point this season. This was a 35-point win in a number of ways. It was really impressive the way they just sucked the soul out of Ohio State.
Yeah, just to speak to that Ohio State program, as the team hasn't made the tournament since 2022, hasn't made the Sweet 16 since 2015. With Thad Matta. That's 11 years ago now. And so for a school that has, you've seen it in football, unlimited resources to be good in any sport they want to, essentially, right? And so I think that you're seeing a pretty downtrodden fan base there who's just all right, what are we getting excited about? You're going to have to see, they're almost going to have to get shocked back into, on the laying on the table to get shocked back into having anything. It's yeah.
This is the day that happens though, right? Have some juice. Dusty's talked about it, the boost that the crowd, like that Nebraska game specifically, that crowd helped Michigan get across the finish line. There's no doubt about it.
But you're talking about we talked about Maryland, Michigan fans have a proof of concept now. Last year, even you go back to that Maryland game last year where it's you're still kind of rounding up the troops. And I think a lot of it has to do with rhythm as well. So last year, Michigan fans probably did not expect the team to be as good as it ended up being, right? and you have fans going to games throughout the year. Well, this year, everyone was excited. Look at the team we've got. Look what we did last year. The roster looks even better this year. And it's almost like you have buy-in from the get-go. Like, okay, we're going these games. Can't wait for this game. Let's look at the schedule. And it seemed like last year when that Maryland game kind of slipped through, I wonder, you almost have to have proof of concept and then build on it year over year with some of these fan bases. It seemed like no excuse. I mean, we had banged on Michigan fans for when they were not very showing out at Chrysler for the Maryland game, and that's, this should be the one they should show up for in Columbus. You're right.
If I remember, last point, I know we'll get on to all of the Michigan specific things, but if I remember, that was a Tuesday night, maybe Wednesday. It was a midweek night. This is a 1 p.m. CBS Sunday tip on Super Bowl Sunday, and it's not running up against Super Bowl. This is a 1 o'clock game. You have hours to get home. I darn near made it back from Columbus. I was pulling in my driveway 20 minutes after kickoff. And so I did go with my fiance, and so she was able to drive first half of the way back. So I banged out the follow in the car. So it's not like I didn't do my work immediately after. But still, the point is, I mean, they're going home 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes, whatever. So I don't know. I just, it put a lot in perspective, and I'm expecting a huge Michigan turnout. I was looking at tickets in Evanston. I mean, single tickets in the upper deck are like $150 to get into this Northwestern Michigan game. And I assure you, I mean, here, and I'll let you take us to the next point, and I'm going to look up what Northwestern's next home game is. Whatever it is, I bet you can get in for $25.
Yeah, barring it being Michigan State, I would say. I mean, it would be, that's the only two games I feel like which it's not. But if it were, those are the only two games that I feel like you have those strong Michigan fan bases who are in Chicago, live in Chicago. It's not a far drive. You want to go to Chicago, hang out. So certainly those are the exception to the rule for Northwestern home games. But the other big storyline, we'll circle back. Oh, okay. Tony's got it. I didn't even get to pivot in time.
How much? Okay. Maryland is the next week, for this same
Maryland's
section.
Terrible.
This is essentially the exact same section.
I'm going to go real low. I'm going to say 12. I'm going to say $12.
$9.
Oh my God.
$9 for, okay, let me see. That's for two tickets together. So in section 204, row 1, $9. I was looking at the row 1 tickets, in the 200 sections, earlier yesterday, because I know someone who was looking for one. It was $148. So I don't know if it's the same exact section, but it was a corner section. I mean, it's as equivalent apples to apples as it can get. $9 versus $148.
That's insane. I mean, that just shows you the Michigan fan base that's out there. And I think, we spoke to it a few seconds ago. I don't think we've ever talked about a fan base, fan bases more on the podcast, but, this is a game that certainly people, if you live in Chicago and you are a big Michigan basketball fan, you had the proof of concept last year. You've had it throughout this entire season. This is a really good team. This is a game that you've circled for a long time as wanting to go to too. So, I mean, that certainly is a factor as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, 60 games in, Michigan is 39-11 under Dusty May with the Sweet 16, with a Big Ten tournament title, and now with the best start in program history. And I guess just to pivot it and move this forward, if Michigan wins both games this week, it's going to be the number 1 team in the nation. And I mean, I think I've thought, yes, Michigan, Arizona, I think are the two top teams. And of course, there's going to be some bias because Michigan is the one who I have not missed a second of Michigan basketball this year. Actually, that's not true. We were down in Orlando, and I think it wasn't the LaSalle game. It was the game after that. Maybe it was the LaSalle game. I don't know. It was one of those games right around in late December, and it was on Big Ten Network or BTN Plus. And so we weren't able to get the stream going until like the second half. McNeese, when they beat McNeese 112-71. So I missed a few minutes of that. But outside of that, I've seen every second of every game. And
you can't ever question Tony's honesty after that. That declaration there.
I know people really needed that. And so, of course, I've seen more of them than Arizona. But I mean, I saw the Arizona, a good portions of Arizona, Kansas last night, and some others this year. I'm taking Michigan to win any game. The only reason you wouldn't is like during this 3-game stretch that we alluded to, when you got to play at Purdue, when you got to play Duke neutral court, when you got to go to Illinois. I don't know if I can pick. I mean, I won't be picking them to win all 3 of those games, but if you tell me they're going to win that they're either going 3-0 or 1-2 in those games, I think they're going 3-0.
Yeah. Well, Arizona's schedule, I was just pulling it up too. They're going to have chances to make up for that Kansas loss. So pre-show, we were comparing notes. It's like, I think that Michigan as a whole has a more impressive resume. But if you're just looking at the losses, which appears to be what the voters are the only thing they're considering, because earlier in the year, Michigan and Arizona, Arizona was always getting the edge because of the undefeated record. Michigan lost at home to Wisconsin. Arizona loses on the road to Kansas. Kansas is better. It's on the road, but they don't have Darren Peterson, who is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Tony mentioned it earlier. He was sick. So you're kind of splitting hairs. I think the slightly better loss would go to Arizona, right? I mean, I think
definitely
splitting hairs.
But the quality
even though Peterson's
of the
out
too.
The quality of the wins is an easy edge for Michigan, in my opinion, especially when you factor in the blowouts, but and just the general quality they've been in at game in and game out. But just touching on Arizona again, real quick, and again, we're talking about number 1 overall seed. Hardly ever matters. I mean, it's all matchups. It's end of the day, it's more just a badge of honor, maybe some confidence, maybe a slightly easier game in the 8 seed and the 4 seed games. I mean, once you get to the Elite 8. Who's talking about the number 1 overall seed, really?
But also it's geography. It's geography.
Well,
it's the first, because you get to pick your.
But I mean, Arizona and Michigan are so far apart that it's not going to matter.
You're exactly right.
So, secondly, last thing here, have you looked at Arizona's schedule down the stretch here? I mean, Michigan's got a tough schedule too, but they're playing Texas. So they just played at Kansas, who's number 9. Then they're playing Texas Tech, who's number 16. Then they host BYU. Then they're at number 3, Houston. Then they play Baylor, who's not very good. Then they play Kansas again, who is only going to move up in the rankings. And then they play Iowa State, who's number 5. So of their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 remaining games, 5 of them are ranked matchups, and 3 of them are top 10 games. So they got their work cut out too. So it might not end up being kind of a moot point.
Very similar to Michigan, right? We've mentioned the 3 big games, Illinois, Purdue, and Duke. And then don't sleep on Michigan State coming to Ann Arbor to wrap the season. And then you throw in a road game, sneaky Thursday road game at Iowa. Circle that one as well.
Ahead of the trap game ahead of Michigan State, the season finale too.
And coming off the trio of games
there's so much turnover on the roster too, especially on the Michigan side. But I don't think Dusty is going to, after the way the game went in East Lansing, after everything that happened with Jeremy Fears and all that stuff, and rewinding a year, just a little bit of storyline back and forth. But yeah, rewinding back to last year with Trey Holloman and LJ Kaysen and Fat Brooks and that whole thing at the center court. I mean, there's no way, even if Michigan has a 1 seed wrapped up, like they're not going to take their foot off the gas in that game. Not with the chance to sweep your rival.
Oh, no way.
And not, like if you're playing, I mean, even to say another rival like Ohio State at home, maybe you get caught being a little sleepy. You already have that 1 seed locked up. Say you have the Big Ten in the bag, maybe that could catch you, but that's not going to happen for the MSU game. So that's almost an advantage for Michigan, I would say, to get that game in the last game of the season too.
No, definitely is.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back with some more Michigan talk. We'll look ahead to the schedule down, what we had ahead, and tie up some other thoughts as well. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. Zooming out here a little bit, because like we said, we just watched 2 absolute annihilations of Penn State and Ohio State last week. So let's zoom out and talk about what this team is going to look like in March, because that's ultimately what everyone's concerned about, what the seed is, that it's one game elimination tournament, right? So you can have the greatest regular season of all time, but at the end of the day, people are going to be concerned about March. So Tony, this is a shoo-in 1 seed if the season were to end now, looking like a number 1 overall seed. And ultimately, why would you say that is? And why have they been able to put that foot on the gas the last week outside of just some of the momentum they've been riding?
I'm going to give the answer that Dusty has given us a number of times when we ask, how has this team been so good away from home? Because, they're 11-0, I believe, in away from Chrysler, 7-0 in true road games. Then they had the neutral site against Wake Forest, and then 3 neutrals in Las Vegas, which they obviously swept in dominating fashion. And his answer is, we've got really good players. Affirmative. Affirmative. They do have very good players. We were looking on Evan Mia as we were putting the show together pre-show, and these numbers feel very in line with sort of what you think about, right? So they've got 2 top 10 players per Evans metrics in Jaxel Lendeborg, who is number 2 behind only Cameron Boozer, and then Morris Johnson Jr., who is number 8. Then they've got 2 more.
Out of how many think about how many players that is too. There's 320?
Yeah, if you do just the power, so there's 350 or 363 teams, but just compare it to the power conferences, right? So there's roughly 64 teams in the power league, somewhere around there. I probably should know exactly how many there are.
Well, you got other teams in basketball like Gonzaga,
Yeah. So maybe there's, So maybe, say there's, let's call it 65 very legitimate, like good, solid teams. And it might be 75 teams that at least go in each year feeling like they've got some decent talent on their roster. Michigan. And so 75 times 5. Now I'm going to have to do math on the fly. That's concerning. That's 375 players just amongst those teams. Michigan has 2 of the top 10. They have 4 of the top 60, with Elliot Cadeau ranked 57th and Adai Mara ranked 58th. And then I would do like the guess who is Michigan's next highest rated player, but unfortunately we like to shield these things from each other, but we did cheat. We did discuss this. And so I will present it for the people. It's Trey McKinney, who is 88 in the nation. So if you broke it down just to the Big Ten, and they had 18 teams, that's 5 players each, you would expect like 90 starters. That's how many players we're talking about. And Michigan has 4 of that many 90 players in the top players in the country. Then Namari Burnett is in the mid, like right between 100 and 150. I think he's like 131 when we last checked. So, sometimes it's just that simple, right? Like you just have the best players, the most efficient players. I go back to the Penn State game that we're talking about, right? We didn't even mention how that game happened. Namari Burnett went nuclear. He hit 7 threes. He had 3 dunks. He scored a career high 31 points. His previous career best was 21 points. He scored, he'd never scored more than 21 points in 5.5 seasons. And he drops 31. That's just, and it's because there's just so many options. Like you got to sort of pick your poison with Michigan. You can't shut everything down. Michigan, I think maybe my favorite Michigan stat this year is in 23 games, they have had 8 different leading scorers. 8 people. The only person in the 9-player rotation who has not led this team in scoring in a game is Will Cheddar. And he has even had a couple. I think Will's high this year is 14. I think he scored 4.
That's a crazy stat, by the way. For a team that has star power too. This isn't like a team that you see sometimes, 04 Pistons or something like that, where it's like, we're all good players. Michigan has star power. What we just said, Jaxel Lendeborg is the second best player in the country, according to some of these advanced analytics that we look at, like Evan Mia, right? So this is a team that has star power. So to have that diversity of scoring, it leaves a lot of these teams like Ohio State wondering, like, what's the answer? Like, they can shoot, they dominate inside, they have the rim protection with Adai Mara, who just had the best game of his career offensively, scoring 24 points on 11 to 16. I guess, was that his career high? I
24 was his career high. And he hadn't hit a 3-pointer in his first 83 games, and he hit 2.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen, right? This Michigan team they're not perfect. Almost no team is, right? They had that weak stretch. So maybe they'll ride some peaks and valleys along the rest of the way. But if you're just betting on talent and sample size, I don't know how you can't just be loving every second of this. If you're a Michigan basketball fan, you're just taking it like almost like the cliche of like, enjoy it while you have it. Cause if Dusty May is the next Coach K, which, that's saying a lot. I don't think either of us think that that's the kind of run Michigan's going to go on the next 30 years, right? That'd be highly unlikely. But even if he is, he might never have a team this dominant statistically as they are, right? That's what we're looking at.
Yeah. There's especially with the last couple, and Dusty does want to build a little more through the high school ranks and just be able to find a way to have just like a little more consistency year over year. The first couple of years, you got to put things together on the fly with the portal, and they're still going to hammer the portal. And now they have the phrase you've been using, proof of concept. That's not just for the fans, right? That's for the players. Like, I wrote a story preseason, like that Danny Wolf was the gift that keeps on giving because Danny was able to do what he did last year. That was the final major selling point. Like that was how they got their foot in the door with Yaxel, and then just continuing to sort of hammer that home. Like, we're not going to use you exactly the same, but we can use a point forward and run things not like, and that, like, it's what Dusty said when he came into Michigan. He's like, we want anybody on the court to be able to set up the offense. Like, you don't just, let's look at Michigan State, or Purdue, which is exactly the opposite. It is Jeremy Fears. It is Braden Smith, who is getting Purdue and Michigan State, flip those, into their sets. And they like, those teams sort of go as those guys go. Michigan doesn't go as anyone goes. I mean, Morez Johnson can get in foul trouble, and he's incredibly important to this team, but they can still weather the storm. Elliot Cadeau has had games where he did not score, and Michigan won. He turned the ball over 8 times by himself against top 5 Nebraska, and Michigan won. You know what I mean? I mean, there are just so many options. Namari Burnett was in a funk for like 3 weeks. Doesn't matter. Roddy Gale hasn't scored more than double digits in a game in like a month. Last year, when Roddy went into his funk, that was, I mean, Michigan really needed him. Like that was
sunk him. Yeah,
exactly.
Last year when he couldn't hit a shot. Yeah.
And now, I don't know the last time Roddy Gale hit a 3-pointer. I mean, it's been a while. And he hasn't been taking a lot. He's really been slashing, and he still does a lot of things that this Michigan team needs. But I knew I was going to have an ad pop up. All right. His last 3 was Wisconsin. His last 3 was Wisconsin in the loss, and he was 1 of 4. He hit 3. I mean, yeah, Roddy's made like 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 threes this whole year in 20 some games. But they just don't need it. It just doesn't matter.
I think the term that you're basically saying is the margin of error they have is incredible.
That's
right?
exactly right.
Because if you're not getting a good game from Trey McKinney, who suddenly seems to be one of the most consistent players on the team, well, then what about LJ Kayson? Like, he was awesome to end last year, and he still is playing pretty well. Like, everybody is a bonus, right? Like, if Morez Johnson's not having the greatest game, Adai Mara is there to protect the rim and get offensive rebounds. Like, I was looking at the box score from last game. Yaxel Lendeborg, 4 offensive rebounds. Morez Johnson, 6 offensive rebounds. Adai Mara, 4 offensive rebounds. Like, offensive rebounds in themselves create margin for error, right? Because you're getting yourself a second chance, right? Like, just looking at that, like, it just all comes back to margin for error, you know. And you even mentioned Cadeau. Cadeau is probably the one player who, he's their only true point guard, which on this team, as you said, may not be the be all end all. It still matters. You still need somebody to get you in sets sometimes. But even him, he'd be the one player you'd say, well, you know, if he goes off the rails, you might not have a literal plug and play, you know, not just like, oh, well, you could do this. They have ins and outs, like literal plug and play guys at every other position. And he had his worst game of the year in their biggest win maybe their second biggest win against Nebraska, right? So it's like the true like variance that they can play, that they can recover from. It's just like, it's exceptional roster building. But then you think about like Adai Mara they took from UCLA. He transferred from UCLA, but he would be UCLA's probably their best player, right? I mean, Morez Johnson would be Illinois, one of their 2, certainly probably their best player. Him and Wagler would, according to Evan Mia's rankings, are right there with him. You know, Yaxel Lendeborg was the best player, not in a power conference, right? So I mean, it makes sense, right? Like when you look at it, what happened, but it's crazy. That's all I can really say.
But it still has to come together, right? I mean, like other teams, Louisville, St. John's,
Kentucky, right? Kentucky
Arkansas,
so
Kentucky. These teams spend $15, $20 million on rosters and are on the upper end of those teams 6 seeds. You know what I mean? Like it's not just a guarantee.
No, but real quick, putting back on what you said, I think that a lot of it ties to, and Dusty said this after the Michigan game in his press conference.
After
he was
the
like
Michigan
kind of joking,
State
like
game,
Michigan State game. Yeah, sorry. After the Michigan State game. Yes. He was talking about how when they were in the portal, someone asked him about, you know, Danny Wolf and Vlad and those 2 guys. And he was like, you know, well, we kind of had to lie to him, you know, like no one else is going to be like to do that pick and roll that Vlad and Danny were able to do. And he was like kind of joking, like, you know, well, yeah, sure, we'll be able to do that. But like the point being, like, they had buy-in from these people when they came in, right? Like Adai Mara, like, look what happened last year with Michigan's, you know, 5-man. Like Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf got to expand their offensive profiles a lot, right? Like, and Mara's already doing that. Like they're going to allow you to grow your game, right? And then, Yaxel Lendeborg clearly bought in on the Danny Wolf pitch. When these guys came in because of the groundwork laid last year, there's been immediate buy-in for all the different roles. Trey Donaldson, Elliot Cadeau, right? Like you see all these different guys like, hey, this works. And I think that's a huge part of why, and it's not, again, that's not a guarantee either, right? There's established teams who will whiff 1 year, but I think that certainly helps when it's year 2 and year 1, you didn't have the same level of talent, but you had a buy-in. Well, then it translated. And yes, it's been a complete roster turnover, but it almost feels like they're building off last season in a way that doesn't make sense when you look at it granularly, but when you look at it big picture, it does.
Well, I would say, I mean, it was largely a turnover in their starting lineup. But if you break it down piece by piece, and Elliot Cadeau is a better, different, but better true point guard than Trey Donaldson was. Yaxel Lendeborg is a better player than Danny Wolf was, who was already a fabulous player. Adai Mara and Vlad Golden, that's darn near a push. I wouldn't say, I think Vlad was Michigan's most consistent player.
Mara's defense is better.
You could say, yeah.
But Mara's defense is better and Golden's offense is better.
Yeah, Mara is a better rim protector. Morris Johnson is not replacing anybody. He's just an addition. And then LJ Kaysen is a year older. Roddy Gale is a year older. Will Cheddar is a year older. Namari Burnett is a year older. And then Trey McKinney is a McDonald's All-American who was 6'4", 220 coming in. He was already built physically to play in the Big Ten. And then the whole staff stayed together. They had learned all the lessons of a Big Ten season, what they needed, what worked, what didn't a year ago. And last year, this was a team that was in the Big Ten title race until right around this week last season, right? And then they still made it to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. So it's not surprising. It's not surprising. If you just break it all down that way, it's like, yeah, better players, more continuity, more experience, top to bottom, coaching players. Yeah. That's how this goes. It's just a fabulous team. And the rebounding improvement lately is what Dusty has really pointed to. When I sat down with Jacob Cohn, the team's analytics guy, right around the new year, he was explaining it. That was one of the few areas. Michigan was number one in every advanced metric, kind of like they are now. They were undefeated at the time. And he was like, I think we can still get better. And rebounding was one of the places they pointed to. So their rebounding rate is almost exactly identical to that same day. It was 36%. Now it's 35.9% offensive. But they've now played 11 more Big Ten games. They've gone in the grind of the Big Ten slate. They're not playing McNeese and LaSalle and even other teams like Wake Forest and TCU, teams that don't rebound as well as the Big Ten. So to be rebounding at the exact same rate against much better teams, that has worked out as a net positive in many ways. And Michigan's number 3 in the Big Ten in offensive rebounding now. They have either, during their 8-game winning streak that they're on since Wisconsin, 7 of which have come by double figures, they've won the rebounding margin in every single game except one. That was Michigan State, which is the best rebounding team in the nation, and they were even. That is essentially a win. To wash out what the opponent does best, that is a win in and of itself. So there's just so many ways that this Michigan team has improved, and they've shot the ball really well the last 3 games. It was 38% against Michigan State. It was above 50 against Penn State. I don't remember I think they finished 10 of 23 against Ohio State. So upper 40 or 42% range, something like that.
43. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, 43.
10 23. Yep.
Yeah. So they're shooting above 40% the last 3 games from 3, and they're rebounding the ball.
Yeah.
And Dusty says they literally chart offensive rebounds as defensive stops. They chart them the same way, which,
interesting. Yeah. You're getting yourself another possession, but Michigan, the shooting you would expect with this group when you're playing three bigger guys. Yaxel, Mara, and Johnson Mara recently have shown that they'll take threes, but I wouldn't classify them all as spacing weapons necessarily. They're pretty good they're passable to good, which is a win considering how big and athletic and dominant they are as forces. But with a team that big, I can see why, looking back on it, that was what they were pointing to. Is look at this, look at that lineup. Mara's 7'4", Johnson is basically 7 foot, and Yaxel is 6'9", but physically built out, right? That team should be dominating the class, and now they've added that because every coach in the world will tell you, shooting's going to come and go, right? You're vulnerable if you're relying on shooting only, right? So they tied that rebounding up, and that's another reason why they continue to look better, right?
Number 5, Ken Pom offense. Number 1, Ken Pom defense. There's just no weakness on this team, which is what we had been saying and what it looked like early. But it's like, yeah, there's still a small sample size. You got to what does it look like? So in Big Ten play, they're number 2 in both offense and defense efficiency. I think Illinois is number 1 on offense. MSU is number 1 on defense. Their effective field goal percentage, number 1 on offense, number 2 on defense. Offensive rebound rate, 3rd. Free throws to field goal attempt ratio, 3rd. So they're getting to the line. Their defensive rebounding rate, 6th. Their defensive free throw in the limiting fouls, 4th. Their 3-point percentage on offense, 6th. Their 3-point percentage on defense, 5th. Number 1 on both sides of the ball in 2-point percentage. They are number 1 in average 2-point distance on offense. So proximity, how close your twos are, they're best in the league. And in that same metric on defense, how far you're forcing teams to do it, they're number 2. So they're either the best or in the top 3rd of the league in everything, in rebounding, in shooting, in defense, in offense. I mean, it's amazing. They're number 1 in the league in limiting assists to field goals made. So us teams only assist on less than 44% of their made buckets against Michigan, which means you are forcing opponents to just facilitate one-on-one. And when you have all the length and size that Michigan does, you're not really in an advantageous one-on-one matchup. You need to be able to pass the ball to do these things. And so it's just, what are you going to do? What can you say?
Yeah. Great week for Michigan. Basically, moral of the story, right? Arizona loses to Kansas on top of a great year, right? So Michigan State beats Illinois. So now Michigan's solo first place in the Big Ten. Looking ahead, let's run through the schedule. I'm going to put a metaphorical, water pistol to your head. I'm going to shoot you with my water gun if just have to make this call. All right. Here's the schedule. You're going to tell me the record when I get done with reading. At Northwestern, UCLA at home, at Purdue, Duke in Washington, D.C., so neutral site. Minnesota at home, at Illinois, at Iowa, MSU at home. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games left. What record do you say?
I am stuck between 6-2 and 7-1. Now, 6-2 feels like, how can I pick them to lose 2 of 8 games when they've won 22 of their first 23? So that feels difficult. But also, at Purdue, at Illinois, and neutral site Duke, all 3 of those are on par with the Michigan State game in terms of difficulty. And I guess you could argue maybe even tougher. So 7-1 or 6-2. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say they go 7-1 down the stretch, just because I've picked against them to lose. I picked them to lose 1 game this year, and I was wrong. So I feel like you're just safer betting, picking them to win. I would be shocked if they were worse than 6-2. Although there are 4 very difficult games remaining. There are teams that most teams in the country would go 4-4 down the stretch here, and I'm picking them to go 7-1. Which is elite. It's really because, there's just no shot they lose to Northwestern tomorrow. None. There's no shot they lose to Minnesota at home. There's almost no shot they lose to UCLA. Okay, so yeah. And so Ken Pom has Northwestern as a 92% win, UCLA as a 92% win, Minnesota as a 98% win. Interestingly enough,
what's the Iowa game?
Iowa is 67%. So that's a sneaky game. Interestingly enough, Michigan State at home, they have it 78%. So they think they are notably more likely to beat Michigan State at home than Iowa on the road, which is why we said earlier in this pod, watch out. That's a sneaky spot. However, I still think Michigan wins it. It's 58% Purdue, 56% Duke, and 50% Northwestern.
So statistically, you have 3.
That's about a 20. It's about a 20% chance.
Yeah.
It's about a 20% chance, give or take. 15% chance to win all 3 of those games.
So it's possible, but we'll see. A lot of basketball to play still here, and as we said, enjoy it, Michigan fans. Why you got it? This is a dominant team and one who is going to be well positioned for March Madness, almost certainly, no matter what. So.
Certainly. Yeah, there's I
didn't want to say guaranteed because I didn't want injury jinxes and all that stuff. You never know, right? So I wanted to give the That's my editor brain working, right? That's me trying to
hedge the bets. No, that's right.
Yeah, hedge the bets, exactly. So with that, thanks to everybody for sticking around this long. We appreciate it. Thank you to Tony for playing sick, unlike Darren Peterson, the future number 1 overall pick. Thank you to Robin Chan, who always edits this podcast. He is the opposite of Darren Peterson. He's always available. He's always ready to go. No injuries. He's like Jokic, Nikola Jokic. He's never hurt. So we appreciate him. We appreciate Nicole Avery-Nichols, our editor-in-chief here at the Free Press, and our acting sports editor, Ryan Ford, as well. So with that, thank you to everyone who makes this show possible. Thank you to the listeners. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review, all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you guys next week after 2 Michigan basketball games.